What's up, ladies and gentlemen, and my fellow reptilian? My name is Scythe, and we are back again some more Trove, and today is the glorious day we've all been waiting for. February 5th, finally, it's 3 different words when it comes to the Trove devs. We've got U10 and the Geo Topside biome, crystal gear, cosmic gems, all of this stuff and more is finally here for you console players to be able to enjoy. Now, at the moment that this video ends up going public, the servers should still be offline. Maybe they're back online. I don't know. Hopefully, you're not going to end up dealing with a bazillion game-breaking bugs. But this is going to be the definitive video to break it down for you, let you know what you can end up doing with this update, and, well, hopefully get you a little bit prepared for the update, even though it is a little bit later rather than earlier in regards to some of the stuff that we're talking about. But more so, I do already have videos that talked about like how to prepare for U10 and everything like that when it came out on PC, not to mention just patch notes videos in general, so you can check those out. I don't know if they'll be in the description of this video because I linked to a bunch of other things instead, but you can always just search it up on the channel. Otherwise, there is a lot to go through. So without further ado, I would appreciate if you would hit that like button. And before you end up being a pay-to-win monster with this update, with these Geode and Topside caches, I would very much appreciate if you would end up signing into your Trove account in the link down below. That way, GameAgo, the guys that are in charge of this game, will be able to track your Trove purchases, and they'll end up giving me a percentage of any purchases that you end up making, so long as you end up signing in through that affiliate link. So let's get started. Gem boxes. So if you guys are wondering about which gem boxes you should have been saving up to this point, by the way, this is a good point to mention, is that this is the Mastery Dread. I haven't made an updated video of it yet, but they finally ended up making that Dread look a little bit more swag for being unlocked from Mastery. But anyways, on to the point I was saying with the gem boxes. The only gems that are going to affect this new update are going to end up being your empowered gem boxes, because any of your normal shadow gem boxes that you just get out of the world and stuff like that, those do not end up unboxing cosmic gems. You end up getting cosmic gems exclusively from the 3 new biomes, and this is pretty much going to be the entirety of the update, guys, is just this area. There's not really that much that is going to affect normal Uber worlds or just anything in general. Unfortunately, it's another one of those infamous Trove updates where the content is completely separated from the rest of the core game, including a lot of new resources required to craft new things rather than having existing resources to help out with that. But anyways, with empowered gem boxes, you can end up getting your hands on cosmic gems. Excuse my UI and everything looking different. I use a lot of mods on PC, but you'll be able to get these empowered cosmic gems, and these bad boys are going to be kind of tricky to level up. We'll talk about the right stats that you want for them a little bit later in the video, but more so than not, what you're going to be looking for is a stellar empowered cosmic gem that is going to have all 3 of its stats available right at the beginning, because I'm pretty sure it still has the chance of not doing that and still has a chance of dropping radiant gems as well. But the biggest thing that you're going to be watching for is the Vampirium Vanquisher ability, which basically is going to be for any speed farming and stuff like that. You're going to need this because it's going to give you a little bit of extra movement speed, makes all the characters a little bit faster. And then for your gunslingers and your Shadow Tower classes, you're going to be going for the Berserk Battler. And this, honestly, you don't even have to have perfect or anything like that as far as the stats are concerned, because this is just going to end up giving you an attack speed buff, which makes the gunslinger really, really OP for Shadow Towers once again. But as far as most of the era characters, you're going for that vampiric one. And then these pinatas, well, we'll talk about that as well in regards to the new Cubit Bar. So you can see in the top right, your Cubit Bar is going to considerably show a lot less cubits that you're going to be able to get, and that's because you can actually get your daily star bar a total of 5 times now. It's a repeatable, and through it you're going to end up getting, whoopsie daisy, through it you're going to end up getting various rewards that aren't on my claims menu right now. But those starry pinatas that people are throwing down constantly, you're basically just going to log into Trove and get daily pinatas that you can end up throwing down. Near as I can can tell, you can't get a pinata dragon egg out of those pinatas, but you can get a bunch of different styles and the mount itself and stuff. So, I mean, the fact that you can get them regularly is always going to be a good thing, right? Now, as far as the gem stats are concerned, this is where things get a little bit tricky in that we gotta be talking about the light stat. So I'll get to this in a moment of what the light stat actually is, but in short, what you're going to be doing with your gems is getting 3 pearls on the light stat of all of these gems. So it might, hopefully you can see it behind my head here with my face cam in the way. But getting your empowered gem to have 3 pearls on light is going to be the trickiest part. And there's a reason for that, but getting it on your lesser gems is going to be particularly easy. Now, before we talk about that, because we'll talk about light a little bit later in the video when we start talking about crystal gear and stuff like that, you can actually, from now on in Trove, the gems have been changed in the best way possible. In that, when you're out farming even normal Uber worlds, or even just the new geode area, any lesser shadow gems are only going to generate as both fierce or arcane. And each of those gems respectively can only generate with physical damage or magic damage. You can still have a fierce gem that has all max health, but when you randomize the stats, they will never be able to swap to magic damage, the same as the arcane gems. And this affects all shadow gems from here on out. So it is still viable if you ended up saving any of your shadow gem boxes up until now. It's still very useful, or even just any of your gem boxes in general, because, I mean, obviously now you have a chance of getting the ones that you actually need for your characters, right? Because on top of that, lesser gems will finally always spawn with all 3 stats. It's not going to affect any gems that are under shadow, though. Those can still just be completely random stats. They can still be garbage as well in terms of the stats when you're leveling them up and stuff like that. And then speaking of leveling up gems, it's a lot easier to do that because of the fact that gems can't break anymore. So it's really crazy to think that you can just quite literally spam your gem levels. So long as you have enough gem dust, you can just force that karma bar up. And all these glittering horseshoes and luck bugs and luck cats and stuff like that, all those are going to serve to do is end up just making the gems have increased percentage of success, because the clovers have actually been removed. Now, weirdly enough, we still have the clover tome in the game, and the logic behind this, behind the devs' thinking process, is that you can still forge your jade clovers into horseshoes, into luck bugs, into luck cats, which essentially is the worst way possible that a free-to-play player, or worst way possible, the only way possible that a free-to-play player can end up getting their hands on some of these higher tiered items like a 9th life and stuff, unless you end up going for credit pouches, but it's really, really expensive. And then I'm assuming that you guys are going to understand how these focus items work, because there's not really anything to talk about there. That's just augmenting the percentage of the stats on your gems. I've got an updated gem tutorial for 2019 that talks about in every detail possible. But the contained chaos spark is going to be a little different in that you can use 2 of them now to craft the chaos flare. And what this item is going to do is, on your gems, you could end up re-rolling all the stats until you end up having the stats that you want, but you could never end up moving these pearls, so you would essentially have to roll stats off of the pearls and get them back onto it to end up being the perfect stats that you want, right? So it's a little bit different when it comes to the light stat value, because the light stat is always going to generate on cosmic gems, and you can't re-roll it off for some reason. I understand why they did this, but it's kind of weird. And because of that, that's why these new flare items are in. So basically, if I maxed this gem out and it had 1 pearl on physical, I could use one of those flare items to roll that pearl off of physical, and it would randomly go to light or crit damage. And you just kind of keep doing that until you end up getting all 3 pearls onto light with your empowered gem. Because your lesser gems, honestly speaking, guys, you're going to be swimming in the gem dust for these guys, okay? So I would actually recommend, as far as cosmic gems are concerned, you're going to be farming like the U8, U9, and U10 of Geo Topside so much anyways, and getting so much of the gem dust. it's way cheaper and easier as far as your resources are concerned to not bother re-rolling the stats at all for the light pearls. Anyways, you're still gonna have to re-roll the stats, obviously, but I would recommend you get a lesser gem. Make sure, and then as you level it up to level 15, just keep watch of the light stat and make sure that you get all 3 pearls into the light stat, and then you can invest into that gem, and then you can start working on it and making it a little bit better and stuff like that. This is all for farming purposes, by the way. If you're going for shadow towers, obviously light is going to be pretty irrelevant, but honestly, if you've already got like all of your other gems all maxed out, you don't really need the extra damage from the cosmic gems. However, it is still going to end up being helpful for shadow towers, most definitely. I mean, you can see even with my gunslinger, I don't even have this gem maxed out or anything like that, because it's just, I just never even bothered. These ones are, but they don't really have the stats that I actually want on them, which it doesn't matter. You know, it's like you're already doing shadow towers fairly well at this point anyways, or at least you should, and you're going to be able to do it that much easier now that we have these gems. Your power rank is also going to end up shooting up as well. Whew. Okay, so that covers all the gems. Again, we'll talk about the light stat later, but now let's talk about the worlds themselves. So as far as the power rank required, 5,000 PR for U8 is just the standard for the rest of the game. Same with U9 being 10k PR, but it comes in a little bit differently in that you're going to have 15k PR for Uber 10, but on top of that, you also have to have a certain amount of light involved. Now, we'll talk about that in a bit, but first, let's kind of show off the biome. If you guys haven't already seen, almost every one of my streams is just me going through U10 and just farming as fast as we can, because this is going to be your new end game, this disgusting red color. Get used to it, man, because this is it. This is the end game, and you need a lot of jump in order to end up going through a lot of these dungeons as well. It truly does feel like Trove's end game in the regards that it's very difficult to navigate this terrain, but it's going to be well worth it even for just casual farming, because dungeons are so plentiful, and the new 5-star dungeons basically count as 5 1-star dungeons all rolled into one. And we'll talk about 5-star dungeons in a bit, but as soon as you end up going to U8, you guys are going to be able to craft yourselves very, very cheap on the resources here. You're going to be able to craft yourselves a crystal weapon, and this is a crystal 1 weapon. It goes from crystal 1, 2, and 3. You can only find them as different drop rarities. You can't actually forge up a crystal 1 to a 2, a 2 to a 3, so on and so forth. You cannot actually do that, right? So the difference of each of these weapons is that if you craft them, they're always going to end up having jump as one of the stat values to them, which is good, because you're going to need a lot of jump to navigate this area. Unless you're, you know, unless you're an endgame player that has a lot of mastery, it's like, you're gonna need that jump. Even though, technically speaking, jump is not really the most ideal stat. You can get other stats on your gear as well. But the only way that you can end up getting a shadow weapon without having jump on it is you have to find it as a rare drop out in the world. Now, the interesting thing is that all crystal gear, this is all crystal 1, 2, and 3, as far as I know, you don't need mastery. This is from the devs' words themselves. You do not need, not mastery, you don't need a magic find in order to end up getting crystal drops. Crazy, huh? So as soon as you get the PR, go to U8 and start farming it as fast as you possibly can if you don't already have your class gem ability, because with it being an item that is not affected by magic find, it means that you're very, very likely to just find it while you're out in the world. And all the enemies in this area can end up dropping crystal, even just the normal enemies out in the environment and stuff. So some of the dungeons that have tons of enemies are very worth farming. And then on top of that, the other reason why you want to go for the crystal, because a crystal 1 fully pearled up using all your pearls of wisdom is going to be better than a fully maxed out stellar piece of gear. And it's completely easy to end up getting crystal 1 set for all of your characters. I've actually got a crystal 2 set for all my characters, and some of them actually have crystal 3s, but honestly the crystal 3s are just so absurdly rare. Now, speaking of your stellars, I hope you guys were saving them, because from this point onward, any stellars that you get out in the world, and any stellars that you already have on your characters, when you loot collect them, you will end up getting the Pearl of Wisdom back off of them. And you can also end up getting the Pearl of Wisdom off of your crystal gear if you ended up putting any Pearls of Wisdom on that gear. Okay? Because otherwise, crystal gear, for some reason, when you find it out in the world, I don't think it actually generates with any Pearls of Wisdom. But anyways, this is another dungeon I want to mention too, by the way, is a very, very good one to end up going and farming, just because it's got like so many normal enemies down in here, and they're all worth game wrecking, man, because they can all end up dropping gear, every single one of them. So if you can end up doing it, if you can end up taking this place on, it's definitely worth it, console players. So anyways, I want to kind of skip on here and talk about the stats on crystal gear in general. So as far as the crystal 2 and 3 rarity drops are concerned, those, as far as I know, again, don't require any magic find, but of course having more magic find is going to make crystal gear more common, so it affects it, but it's not required in order to actually have the tier of gear drop. Hey, somebody got a Diamond Dragon. So, Crystal 2, you can only get from U9 and up. And then Crystal 3, you can only get from U10. Okay? And Crystal 3, take it from me, is extremely rare to get. On top of that, depending on the character that you're using, if you're a Shadowhunter main or if you're a Vanguard main, you know, depending on the second stat roll that you end up getting on the Crystal 3 weapon or hat or face or whatever, you might just have to loot collect it. Or, in all honesty, if you get a Crystal 3 that's got bad stats, I'd recommend that you hold on to it, because eventually there's going to be another second stat reroll event at some point, and it's just so worth keeping your Crystal 3s because they're so hard to get, dude. Like, they really, really are. I don't think I have a Crystal 3 set on, like, a full Crystal 3 set on any of my other characters. So anyways, I want to get out of this dungeon because I want to show you guys the ore real quick before I forget. And then we're going to talk about the light stat and how the crystal gear actually works in terms of, like, leveling it up and its power and junk like that. So in the kind of medium red biome, that's the only biome that's going to end up generating these caves. And these caves are going to end up having, this is Viridian, which is the green resource, and this is Nitro, which is the pink resource. These are used for crafting tons and tons of things, but Nitro more particularly is going to be used for upgrading your crystal gear. So I would actually recommend that you guys go and farm it like crazy, because for the first few weeks, you're going to be able to make so much flux off of all of this, dude. Like, it's insane the amount of flux that people were ended up making out of all this. So anyways, I'm going to head on over to this 5-star dungeon here and talk about this real quick before we end up talking about, like, the leveling of the gear and everything like that, and talk about, like, the light stat. And then here's the cosmic gem boxes, and I want to talk about the rarities that you can end up getting with those as well. So this is a 5-star dungeon. The way that these are going to work is you're going to activate this thing, and then you got a time limit. Well, 5 other objectives are marked on your map, and you can see the skulls on the top middle are kind of indicating which ones are active, which ones are actually beaten and stuff. And if a skull has no eyes in it, like no glowing green eyes in it, it means that it's a cursed skull that's not activated. And then if it just has a constant green eyes in it, it means that it's going to end up being just an elite boss. So that's kind of a quick way you can end up telling, like, okay, there's usually going to end up being 2 elites and then 3 cursed skulls. And you'll see in the skulls in the top middle, as I activate this, the eyes light up. So it's kind of a neat little indicator to show, okay, so other people are actually fighting these or something. I wish that they had different color eyes for elite mobs, maybe purple or something, so that we would have a better differentiation between the two. And as far as the timer is concerned, now this is where arguably it's a choice that the devs made that I really don't like. Where originally, when you ended up completing a dungeon fast enough, like a 5-star dungeon fast enough, you would end up getting more rewards. You would end up getting these lesser geode topside caches, which is a mouthful and sounds stupid, I know. But essentially these items that you can end up getting out of those caches is extremely useful, because you can quite literally get, there's like a tome you can get out of it, and then there's crystalline cores, which is the main resource that you get out of these pay-to-win boxes, and is going to also be used to level up your crystal gear and craft a bunch of the different costumes and stuff like that. So instead, what they did now is you can get a gold tier reward from a 5-star dungeon once a day, and that's going to give you, I think it's 8 of these crystalline cores. Look at this. It's so bad that they didn't even bother recoding it to say that it's giving us crystalline cores instead of what it actually gives us, or it actually used to give us, was the lesser cash. So anyways, you can get the gold reward once a day. You can get the silver reward twice a day. And then you can get the bronze one infinite. And the bronze one is quite literally going to end up giving you 1 lesser cash. So normally if you completed the 5 stars fast enough, you were able to get 4 cash. It was a very good rewarding system, kind of balanced out the entire update. And then the devs ended up doing the usual stupid decisions that they do, where they thought with their wallets of, let's try to make it as tedious as possible to get this new resource so that people will just want to bunker down and buy greater geo topside cash, because these are going to give you the crystalline cores. And let me tell you, you need a lot of crystalline cores in order to end up leveling up some of the higher tiers of the crystal gear. And there's a lot of things in the geode crafting table that also end up costing the crystalline cores. Now, on top of that, you're also noticing that we're warping around fairly easily. You're going to notice in the bottom left of your screen, you can't see it because my face cam's blocking it, but there will be a hotkey to end up activating the Trove Atlas. And this is probably the most convenient update they've ever added to the entire game, because it actually affects starting players as well as endgame players. So with the Crystology table, I'll go over it real quick. There's a bunch of different mounts and stuff like that. There's the geode style stashes, which are absolutely broken and stupid. There's a couple different costumes, and as you can see, these are all fairly expensive in terms of their resources, but also end up costing a lot of crystalline cores. And I mean, the crystalline cores involved is insane, because the amount that you need, like, if you're only getting the bronze reward from 5-star dungeons, this is essentially like 300 to 400 5-star dungeons just to end up crafting this tome because of the crystalline cores involved, not to mention the other resources. And that's just based on luck, because with the bronze reward, you end up getting the lesser cash, and those lesser cash have a chance of dropping 10 cores, but the average is going to end up being 1, right? So that's where these greater ones you get out of the store end up dropping a lot more, and it's just it's a stupid system. It really is. Like, I don't know why they made that decision. It's just absolutely dumb. So let's just talk about the gear now, and the light stat and the dark stat, which you're not going to actually see as a player. So the stat on the crystal gear, you can see I've actually got a crystal 3 face right here. You're going to quite literally be able to see on the crystal gear, it's going to say crystal level 3 for a crystal 3, crystal level 2. I think it's just crystal in general for crystal 1. But again, the way that those are going to work is just the differing difficulties of these worlds. And then as far as the gem boxes are concerned, with the U8 gem boxes, you can only get up to shadow gems. With the U9 boxes, you can only get up to Radiant Gems, so you have to get to U10 in order to end up getting yourselves Stellar Cosmic Gems, which is kind of uggles, I know. Now, the way that the crystal gear works, my face cam's kind of blocking it a little bit here, so I'll actually use this as an example, this crystal fist that I ended up getting as a drop. So you can see that there is a light stat on this, and light is going to take the second stat slot on any crystal gear. But as you guys know, when you're re-rolling stats and gear and stuff like that, the second stat is unrollable. The first and second stat is you can't re-roll those stats until a second stat re-roll event shows up. So essentially, the shortest possible way I can explain this, it sounds more complicated than it is treat crystal gear the exact same as all the other gear in the game, but light forces its way between the first and second stat, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. You can't re-roll the physical damage on this weapon. You can't re-roll the light, but we also can't re-roll the crit damage on this weapon, because that technically is the second stat, because light is just another passive ability that is going to happen with all of the crystal gear. And as we end up putting more pearls on this, you can see we're unlocking a 5th stat. Technically, it's just the same as any other gear. The only difference is that it's going to end up having the light stat, and all crystal gear can end up actually having Magic Find as the 3rd slot. So you can actually have a full set, like I'm rocking right now, Magic Find, Magic Find, Magic Find on my weapon, hat, and face all together, right? It's pretty cool, isn't it? And then again, if we end up loot collecting the crystal, wait, did not? Oh, because it's not actually pearled up. I just put a pearl on it to unlock the new stat. I didn't actually put pearls on it that I could re-roll off of it. So, anyways, these lesser boxes are just quite literally, you see right here, we can only get up to Shadow with the U8 gem boxes. But, again, you're going to be swimming in the gem dust, so it's super duper easy. Leveling up your crystal gear is just an absolute joke for Crystal 1 and 2. It's going to be really, really easy. And then Crystal 3 is just atrociously difficult. Like, I've got... Where is it? I think it's on my Gunslinger, is it? My Crystal 3... Yeah, this one. So, even at level 1, this Crystal 3 hat is going to cost 25 crystalline cores, which already is quite a few dungeons, and then forge fragments and nitro. And then as you level this up, it costs more and more and more and more and more. And it's so expensive to level up one Crystal 3 item, let alone a full set for one class. Or if you're trying to get it on all of them, which... Honestly, I would only recommend you go for full Crystal 3s if you're expecting to farm U10 and nothing but U10. If you're a mid to kind of late game player where you're not bothering with U10, I wouldn't even bother. And even with fully maxed out Crystal 2s and Cosmic Gems, you should have enough light to end up doing damage to the enemies in U10 anyway, so it shouldn't really matter, because otherwise the Crystal 1 and 2 is atrociously difficult to level up, or atrociously easy, while Crystal 3 is just like an absolute joke in terms of difficulty to level up. Now, anyways, let's talk about the light stats. So the way that these biomes work is all of the enemies operate the same as Ultra Shadow Tower enemies, in that they have reduction to your damage towards them. And the light stat, for all intents and purposes, is an armor penetration stat that they renamed to light in all of their developers' wisdom, because they thought that that wasn't going to be confusing. And the enemies themselves have a darkness stat, which is basically an armor stat value to them, but it's the exact same as Ultra Shadow Towers. The difference is that as you end up getting more of a light value to your character, you're going to end up doing more damage to the enemies, or more towards your total damage. The maximum light in the game, I actually have it on this character right here, is 5819. That's with fully maxed out light gems and fully maxed out Crystal 3. And I think you end up doing, it's like... Oh, it's something ridiculous. It's like 38 or 48% of your total damage that you do anywhere else in the game is all you can end up doing to the enemies in U10, as far as I know. So with that, I'm almost always rocking my Marshall emblem just because it makes it go that much faster. But technically, I don't really need to for U10. You can kind of mop the floor with this place once you end up getting geared up a little bit, right? So the other thing, too, is the light stat is going to be required in order to enter some of these worlds. You're not going to be able to jump to U10 right away, because you actually have to have 2,225 or something like that. 2,125 light, I think, on top of the 15 KPR in order to end up entering U10. And U10 isn't going to differentiate itself from either of these worlds. It's pretty much the exact same. It's just the fact that the enemies are going to be that much stronger, and the gear drops can potentially end up being a lot better, and the gems that you're going to end up getting are a lot better. And I think that's pretty much going to end up doing it. Let me actually check my list here. Oh, forge fragments, in case you guys are wondering, you actually get that from loot collecting crystal gear. So keep that in mind, because that's going to be required for a lot of things as well. There's also a couple new dragons added to the game. One of them in particular costs both a light and dark Pegasus dragon egg. That one's really expensive, but you can, if you're a pay-to-win player, use a dragon effigy to get that guy. But then there's also going to end up being another disgusting dragon added with the new biome. And this guy is... He's cheap enough and easy enough to get, because you get his fragments from the mining Viridian and Nitro ore. And by the time you end up having enough ore to end up crafting this dragon in the first place, you should be pretty close to having his amount of dragon's fragments. So if you have dragon effigies, I wouldn't recommend that you use them to get this guy, because he's considerably easy to get. He's still going to take you a couple hours, but it's not like it's difficult or anything. And then also, yeah, if you saved up all your lunar souls to get empowered gem boxes, you can do that, but you might end up having to use a lot of your re-rolling items. I never get lucky as far as the binding darkness is concerned. I just never seem to get it. And I think that pretty much covers everything. I hope so anyways. Oh, and then I guess I should mention too, just because you guys are always curious about, the max PR in the game right now is 340 50. I'm 2 PR away from being maxed out, and that's just because I'm missing a mastery level. Because when you end up getting a mastery level, you get 2 power rank, and I'm missing just tedious things, rampage badge and stuff like that, you know. Otherwise, I pretty much got everything, and I think that covers pretty much everything as well. So at least we ended up getting this all covered in half an hour, and if the patch is still going on console right now, hopefully it's back up. But if not, at least it gave you enough time to end up going through this video to know everything that you needed to know about all this U10 garbage. So anyways, hopefully that covered everything for you guys. I'm going to, of course, have some tutorials come out that are going to be shorter versions of this that touch upon very specific things. I already have a video talking about crystal gear. I already have one talking about the gems and everything like that. But I need to have one that talks about light. I do have one that explains what light is, but I need to talk about, like, here's what light does, here's how you get it, so on and so forth. Another thing too I want to mention as we close off this video here is that crystal weapons are going to generate with a lot more light on them as you level them up over your face and hat. So if you've got a crystal 3 face but also have a crystal 3 weapon, I would recommend that you level up the weapon first, just because it's going to give you that much more light. Even if you have crystal 1s, I would recommend you go for the weapon first again, because that's going to get you even closer to end up getting to U10. And then otherwise, I think that covers pretty much everything. So thanks so much for watching, everybody. Very much appreciate it. Super duper excited that this update is finally out on console, so you guys are going to be able to experience all this stuff. Oh, and then I guess last but not least, the Dino Tamer, his ultimate ability is now going to end up being affected by movement speed buffs. So you can actually have the Dino Tamer be one of the fastest, best farmers in the entire game. But unfortunately, devs are stupid and they ended up breaking this character with this update, where he'll get stuck casting his ultimate animation so much more often with this update that it almost makes the Dino Tamer unplayable. Like, it really does. You Dino Tamer mains, tough luck. You're just out of luck. You can't use that character, like, at all. He gets stuck so often, it's not even funny, dude. Because the only way that you can get off of it is you either gotta, like, respawn or swap classes, or, like, it's pretty ridiculous, man. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys and gals. Very much appreciate the positivity and support. And hopefully that covered everything. If there's some other stuff that I missed, of course, leave it in the comment section down below. And, you know, you guys are always really good for mentioning in the comments the stuff that I end up messing up. But either way, if you would please like, sub, hit that notification bell. And if you want to go the extra mile at supporting me, again, there is that Trove affiliate link in the description. But you can also check out my real life merch store, as well as a link down below to Gawkbox, which is a way you can donate to me for free by basically playing a bunch of phone games for a few minutes. Sign on and stay epic, everybody.